Pluralism is the view that fundamental reality consists of many things. Pluralists believe that everything that we see in our experience is composed of many little bitty smaller things. Okay? The first pluralists we'll look at are the atomists, Leucippus and Democritus. Leucippus and Democritus advanced an argument of this type. Consider this small branch from an oak tree. And the atomists asked this question: are physical objects infinitely divisible? In other words, can I take this branch and divide it infinitely? I divide it, divide, and divide. The question that arises is this: if I keep dividing, will I go forever? If I believe that I will go forever, then I'm saying something finite can be made of infinite parts. The atomists rejected this idea. I couldn't conclude that it goes into nothing, because that would seem to be contrary to reason, that from nothing I get something. Therefore, the atomists concluded there is a smaller part to physical things. In particular, this oak branch has the smallest part, and that smallest part is called an atom. Thus they were called the atomists. The atomists describe atoms as being in motion, having natural motion. They were infinite in number. The atoms individually, their atoms means uncuttable, or that which is indivisible. So atoms were themselves eternal and unchanging, a view that is consistent with Parmenides' insight. Atoms combine to form the planetary system and life itself by a random process. This theory is very much close to what scientists themselves pursue today. The scientific view of atoms is different from the philosopher's view. The philosopher's view is based on an argument that leads to a necessary conclusion. The scientific view of atoms is based on experimental method. The scientific atom can be divisible, but the philosopher's atom is that which is indivisible. This theory was largely consistent. It held the insights of Heraclitus that change is real, and also the insight of Parmenides that the fundamental stuff, in this case atoms, did not change. The atomists argue for atoms and the void, that is, the atom rested in this nothingness, called the void, which I like to call valuable nothingness. Following the atomists were the Pythagoreans. The philosopher Pythagoras created a spiritual commune in which he could actually purify his self and prepare himself to go to heaven. In this commune, they studied mathematics as a means of purification. Have you ever been purified by numbers? I don't know. But he thought it would work. In addition, the Pythagoreans, the schools, the name we use to describe the school, engaged in studying real fundamental theories of mathematics. So they began to discover various things. Like the Pythagorean Theorem, they discovered pi, and they put together a connection between arithmetic and basic geometry. When the Pythagoreans looked at reality, in particular, we're looking at Pythagoras' view of reality here, they came up with the idea that numbers are fundamentally real. In particular, numbers make up fundamental reality. This is very difficult to really understand. But what we get from the Pythagoreans is that abstract entities, numbers are abstract entities, and they're a real part of our understanding of reality. This part we could not escape from. Plato, another pluralist, embraced the idea of abstract entities well developed by Pythagoras in terms of numbers. And Plato generated a theory based on abstract entities. Plato's abstract entities are called forms, and we describe him as having a theory of forms. First, Plato argues for the existence of forms by doing an abstract argument. Take any natural kind. lions, tigers, or bears. And ask yourself, where did they come from if they were not produced by humans? According to Plato, nature has a design, has a blueprint, or has a form which gives rise to these things. Okay? This suggests to Plato that these things are real. Okay? The next stage for Plato was to consider the world as divided in two parts. There is two worlds, the world of becoming and the world of being. The world of becoming, the world of change, the world of Heraclitus, the world that we experience. This is the world of sensible objects. Things change in this world. There's another world, according to Plato, which is called the world of being. This world is perceived by the intelligence, mind, understanding. Reason perceives this. So your eyes see one world, the world of becoming, but your mind perceived another world, the world of being. It is in this world, the world perceived by the intelligence, by reason, that the forms have their existence or their reality. Plato's theory goes on to formulate reality as a hierarchical concept. That is, the forms are most real. And as you go down the gradation, you come to sensible objects, which are least real, and then you get to the shadows or images of things, which are the least real, less real than the sensible objects. Right? This gradation became very difficult for philosophers to make sense of. Aristotle, who actually disagreed, as well as agreed with Plato, thought that the forms couldn't be way out there in outer space somewhere. He thought the forms had to be down here. Aristotle argued that Plato didn't really clearly argue or present, the exact relationship between the forms and sensible objects. And so Aristotle thought they could not be out there. And he also argued that Plato didn't adequately explain change. And Aristotle, being more of a scientifically oriented philosopher, wanted to explain change in a concise way. Aristotle took Plato's forms, these abstract entities, and put them inside of the actual experience. It's not that Aristotle doesn't have a theory of form, it's that it's inside. We describe Aristotle as having a theory of essences because he placed the forms inside of things. They are essences, they are inner design that make things the way they are. Aristotle saw the world as being made of substances. One of the most essential characteristics of substances is that they are a combination of form and matter. When you see something, any object whatsoever, it has a substance. It has a matter of which it's made, the material of which it's made. It also has a form. The form is what gives it its shape, its inner design. These two come together to create what is known as the substance. Aristotle thought that at the extreme ends, matter itself is formless and beyond the senses. And the purest form is also beyond the senses. Okay? And both of them exist as outer peripheries. They come together for us to actually experience. Life as we normally know it, when we meet something or see something in nature, we should view that as actually as an appearance. Once we understand the matter and the form of it, then we could claim to know something significant about the reality before us. To summarize, the atomists really at first introduced a coherent theory of pluralism. Pythagoras immediately introduces the idea of abstract entities in a pluralistic manner. Plato sides with Pythagoras and looks down upon the atomists, seeing them as being too simpleton in trying to explain the ultimate reality. Plato then emphasizes abstract entities, but not just merely with numbers as Pythagoras had done. Now Plato includes forms, abstract entities for everything known. Aristotle takes that same idea and brings it down to earth and said that the forms are included inside of things.